Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Around the Block. I'm your host, Pierre, and today we've got a real treat for you. We're diving deep into the latest Concordium transparency report with our special guest, Tyler. Tyler, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, Pierre, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So, Tyler, Concordium just dropped their third transparency report, and I've got to say, it's making some serious waves. What's your take on the biggest headlines coming out of this report?
Pierre, where do I even start? It's like Concordium has just hit the nitro boost. You know, the numbers we're seeing are absolutely mind-blowing. I mean, get this, they've seen a 2160 increase in daily transactions. That's not a typo, it's 2160%.
Hold up, Tyler. Did you just say 2,160%? That's insane. How does that even happen?
I know, right? It's crazy. So back in June 2023, they were processing about 29,000 transactions a day. Fast forward to July 2024, and they're now handling over 650,000 daily transactions. It's like they've gone from a country road to a superhighway overnight.
Wow, that's impressive. But surely that kind of growth must be putting a strain on the network, right?
See, that's the thing, Pierre. You'd think so, but Concordium has actually improved its performance at the same time. They've implemented this new consensus protocol called Concordium BFT, and it's a game changer. Log times have dropped from 10 seconds to just 2 seconds. And get this, transaction finality, which is crucial for real-world applications, has been slashed from like 12 seconds to about 5 seconds.
Okay, I'm impressed. But let's put this in context. How does this stack up against other blockchains out there?
So, funny you should ask that. According to ChainSpect, which is like this respected performance metrics platform, Concordium is now ranked in the top 10 blockchains for technical performance. We're talking about them being right up there with Ethereum, Solana, Algorand, the big players.
That's quite a leap. It sounds like Concordium is really positioning itself as a serious contender in the blockchain space.
Absolutely, Pierre. But here's the thing, it's not just about the raw performance. What really sets Concordium apart is how they're combining this high performance with regulatory compliance and their unique identity solutions. It's like they're building the Swiss Army knife of blockchains, you know?
Interesting analogy. Can you elaborate on that identity layer? I've heard it mentioned before, but I'm not sure I fully grasp its significance.
Sure thing. So, Concordium's identity layer is really their secret sauce. It's built right into the blockchain at the protocol level, which is unique in the industry. Most other blockchains rely on third-party solutions or complex smart contracts for identity management, but Concordium has it baked in from the start.
And why is that important?
It's a game changer for a couple of reasons. But first, it allows for this perfect balance of privacy and accountability. Users can maintain their privacy, but there's also a way to verify identities if needed, which is crucial for regulatory compliance. Second, it opens up a whole new world of possibilities for enterprise applications.
Can you give us an example of how this might work in the real world?
Absolutely. So one really cool application they're working on is with the Japanese giant Hitachi. They're developing this thing called Public Biometric Infrastructure, or PBI. Basically, it's using Concordium's identity layer to create a super secure and user-friendly authentication system for digital wallets. You know, no more worrying about losing your seed phrase. You could potentially just use your fingerprint or Face ID to access your wallet. And then the best part is that your biometrics are not stored anywhere.
That sounds like it could be huge for mainstream adoption.
Exactly. And it's not just in finance. The report mentions projects in healthcare, energy tracking, even veterinary services. There's this one project they're working on with EnergyNet that is aiming to revolutionize how we track and certify carbon-free energy across Europe. That's frankly pretty mind-blowing stuff.
Wow, it really seems like Concordium is pushing into a lot of different sectors, but with all this growth and these high-profile partnerships, I have to ask, what about decentralization? Isn't that a core tenet of blockchain technology?
That's a great question, Pierre. And you're absolutely right. Decentralization is crucial. The good news is Concordium seems to be taking this really seriously. The report shows that they're making steady progress in distributing ownership and control of the network.
Can you give us some specifics on that?
Sure thing. So the Concordium Foundation share of CCDS, that's their native token, has decreased from 34.1% to 33.1%. Now, that might not sound like a big change, but in the world of blockchain, it's a significant step. But what's even more impressive, that their share of staked CCDs has dropped from 47.7% to 37.2%. So that means more individual holders are actively participating in securing the network. It also raises the expected return on staking for other network participants, thereby incentivizing staking.
That does sound like progress, but I'm curious, how does Concordium's governance model work? Are they giving token holders a say in decision-making?
Oh man, I'm glad you asked about that because it's actually one of the most exciting developments in the report. Concordium has just held their first community election for the governance committee. They've added 2 community elected members to the committee, which now has 7 members in total.
And what does this governance committee do?
So the governance committee is responsible for making big decisions about the network. Things like parameter changes, protocol updates, that sort of stuff. By bringing in community members, Concordium is really walking the walk when it comes to decentralization. And get this, they have a whole roadmap laid out. By 2027, they're aiming to have all committee members elected by the community.
That's quite a commitment to decentralization. It seems like Concordium is really trying to strike a balance between enterprise-grade solutions and staying true to blockchain principles.
Exactly, Pierre. And that's what I find so fascinating about Concordium. They're not just building another blockchain, they're trying to bridge the gap between the Wild West of crypto and the regulated world of traditional finance and enterprise.
Speaking of regulation, I noticed the report mentioned something about Concordium pursuing membership in a Swiss self-regulatory organization. What's that all about?
Yes, this is actually a really big deal. Concordium is in the process of becoming a direct member of a Swiss SRO. Now, this might sound like a bunch of boring regulatory stuff, but it's actually pretty groundbreaking in the blockchain world.
How so?
Well, by doing this, Concordium is essentially positioning itself as a hyper-professional financial entity in the blockchain space. It's a move that sets them apart from pretty much every other blockchain project out there. And when you combine this with their identity solutions and their partnerships with major financial institutions, you start to see a pretty clear picture of where they're headed.
And where exactly do you think that is, Tyler?
I think, and this is just my opinion, but I think Concordium is setting itself up. It should be a go-to blockchain for the next wave of financial innovation. You know, we're talking about things like tokenized real-world assets, compliant DeFi platforms, and maybe even much more. They are for sure building the infrastructure that could make all possible.
That's a pretty bold vision. But with all this focus on compliance and working with traditional institutions, do you think there's a risk of Concordium losing touch with the crypto community?
That's a fair question, Pierre. But from what I can see, Concordium is actually doubling down on community engagement. The report actually talks about this new ambassador program they've launched, and they're seeing some really impressive growth in their social media presence. They're for sure not forgetting their roots. They're just expanding their reach.
Fascinating stuff, Tyler. Now, before we wrap up, I have to ask, what do you think is next for Concordium? Any predictions for the future?
Oh man, where do I even begin? Looking at everything Concordium has achieved and where they're headed, I think we're going to see some really exciting developments. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing major financial institutions, NGOs, or Fortune 500s piloting projects on Concordium. The combination of their performance, compliance focus, and identity solutions makes them very uniquely positioned for these kinds of enterprise and large-scale organizational projects.
Any specific areas you're particularly excited about?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really intrigued by their work in the energy sector, particularly that project with EnergyNet. With the growing focus on sustainability and carbon footprints, I think we could see Concordium become a major player in green energy certification and trading. I'm also keeping a close eye on their artificial intelligence initiatives. The report hints at some work they're doing on verifying AI-generated content using their identity layer. In this era of deep fakes and misinformation, that could be huge. And of course, the potential for tokenized real-world assets is massive. I think Concordium could be at the forefront of bringing things like real estate, commodities, maybe even intellectual property onto the blockchain in a compliant way.
Wow, it really does sound like Concordium is positioning itself at the intersection of some major trends. Tyler, this has been an absolutely fascinating discussion. Any final thoughts for our listeners?
Yeah, I'd just say this. Keep an eye on Concordium. What they're building isn't just another blockchain project. It's potentially the foundation for a new era of digital trust and efficiency. Whether you're a developer, an investor, or just someone interested in the future of technology, Concordium is definitely a project worth watching closely.
Could not agree more, Tyler. This has been an eye-opening conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today.
Thanks for having me, Pierre. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you to all our listeners for tuning in to another episode of Around the Block. And if you enjoyed this discussion, then please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, this is Pierre signing off.